Hello everybody, and this video is going to be over cognitive dissonance theory. Now, for those of you in my in-person class, I know that we've already covered cognitive dissonance theory, but I wanted to review it really quickly here for you. Yes, I'm standing because I'm cool like that and have a standing desk. Well, not a standing desk, just a standing platform on my desk. Yes, I'm a nerd. You know this. Okay, so cognitive dissonance theory, again, to review, argues that, or at least the original version of it, argued that everyone has a motive to be internally consistent, so that they, if they ever become aware that they have a cognition, an attitude that was inconsistent with the way that they had behaved, then they tend to feel this negative arousal state that was called cognitive dissonance. That negative arousal state then motivated them to correct that inconsistency by engaging in some behavior to make them consistent. Now, if they could externally justify that cognitive dissonance to some external source, basically, you know, I didn't really want to behave in an inconsistent manner, so-and-so made me do it, or I did it because there was a lot of coercion, you know, they paid me an obscene amount of money, you know. If you can attribute the inconsistency to some external source, then you tend to do that. You engage in an external justification. But if you can't do that, then you have to turn to yourself and you have to engage in an internal justification. Now, when you are internally justifying, you are typically changing some either some cognition, some piece of information that you have, or some behavior that you may engage in the first place. So we talked about 4 main ways in which you might reduce dissonance if you are not justifying it by attributing it to some external source. 1, and this is the type of dissonance reduction technique that has received the most attention. It is changing the cognition, that is changing the attitude. So, you know, for example, let's say that you think you're an environmentalist and somebody points out that you tend to run the water for extended periods of time. So that's not necessarily consistent with your view of pro-environmentalism. So this is inconsistent. So this might make you change your cognition or your attitude towards environmentalism. So you might say, well, I'm not as much of an environmentalist. I'm not as pro-environmentalism as I may have thought I was, or at least so what you might end up finding is that when people are faced with that inconsistency and they can't externally justify it, then they change their original attitude. You know, so one of the very original studies that Leon Festinger did to show this cognitive dissonance, the process of cognitive dissonance, is he had participants come in and do this just mind-numbingly boring task. Specifically, they were asked to, so they had this plank, and then there were these wooden pegs in the plank, and they had to turn each of the pegs 45 degrees, I believe, and I may be wrong, I believe for 45 minutes. Now, they were told they were going to engage in a manual dexterity task. Now, after they performed that task, which they assumed was a mind-numbingly boring task that very few people would actually really enjoy, so very few people would have positive evaluations of that particular task, they staged a bit of a scene. Specifically, they told participants, hey, I have another participant. This is not literally what they told them, but essentially, they told them, hey, we have another participant, but my research assistant hasn't shown up yet. I need to go prepare materials for the remainder of the study. Could you please start the next participant on the task? And they gave them a script, and the script included stating that the manual dexterity task was enjoyable. All right, which, saying that, would be inconsistent with the assumed attitude towards the manual dexterity task, which is a fairly safe assumption that it was not enjoyable. Now, participants were asked to do this and offered either $1 or $20. Okay, well, this is in the 50s. $20 is a lot of money back then. All right, $1 isn't anything to sneeze at, but it's not quite as much. So almost all the participants agreed to read the script to the participant, who was actually a Confederate. And then after they did that, and the participant, the Confederate, began the manual dexterity test, they went to the experimenter's office to complete the rest of the materials. One of the things they completed in the remaining materials was an evaluation of the manual dexterity test. So they were asked to what extent they liked the manual dexterity task. And what they found is that those who had been paid $1 to say that they enjoyed the manual dexterity task actually reported enjoying the manual dexterity task more than did the people who were paid $20. Now, this is a bit counterintuitive at the time, because at the time, behaviorism was the rule of the day. And so the assumption was that whichever, when they were reinforced more, they would enjoy it more. So the expectation at the time was that those who were paid $20 would actually enjoy the manual dexterity task more. But that's not what happened. So here we have a situation of an inconsistency. They're saying they enjoyed a task they more than likely did not. Right? And again, we have random assignment, so we can assume that not all the people who, for whatever reason, really enjoy manual dexterity tasks all got lumped into the $1 condition. But you have the situation where you have these participants who are saying that they enjoy something that they more than likely do not, are then being asked how they thought of or what their attitude towards the manual dexterity task was. So we have inconsistency. I'm saying I enjoy it, but I don't. Now, if they were paid $20, well, they can externally justify it. Why did I lie? Well, they paid me. They paid me a good little chunk of money to say that I enjoyed it. I can externally justify it. But in the $1 condition, again, that's not that much money, even then. So now they have to, again, for a huge portion of the time when we were studying cognitive dissonance, the assumption that there was no assumption that this thought process was conscious or not. Probably most of the people at the time probably would have said that they thought it was conscious, but I can't say that definitively. But either way, the assumption was that because they couldn't externally justify their saying something that was inconsistent with their attitude, that is, they couldn't externally justify their saying that they enjoyed the unenjoyable task because they were paid $20, therefore they had to reduce their cognitive dissonance through internal justification. And again, what's the first way that we mentioned, and probably the one the one that's received the most attention for reducing one's dissonance, changing the cognition or changing the attitude. So they changed their cognition, their attitude towards the manual dexterity task. So those who were paid $1 reported enjoying the manual dexterity task more than those who were paid $20. Now, I know I went through that really fast. Benefits of YouTube: you can stop it, you can rewind it, you can re-listen to it, and if you have any questions, email them to me. Now, so that's one way. The second way is to, if you're especially devoted to the particular attitude that you are inconsistent with, then you simply say, or simply devote yourself to never behaving inconsistently again. So that's changing the behavior. You can't exactly go back in time and undo the behavior, but you can change the behavior going forward. That's the second way, changing the behavior. The third way is to gather information that confirms consonance. So, for example, one example I often use is smoking. My grandfather, who love him to death, but he died from emphysema. Before he quit smoking, he did quit about 6 years before he died. But before he quit, he would often say that his father had smoked and died at the age of 80. So basically, the message was that smoking doesn't really end your life because you can live to a ripe old age while smoking. So this piece of information allows, sorry, one of my colleagues there thought it'd be funny. Anyway, he threw me off track. Give me a tick. Yes, so he would say, hey, my dad smoked till he was 80. Had a long life, and he smoked the whole time. So, here my grandfather was gathering information that reduced the dissonance between wanting to live and engaging in a behavior that killed that. Well, it did kill him, but is thought to kill people. So we have an inconsistency, wanting to smoke, wanting to live, and so you look for additional information to basically say that there is no dissonance, that these two things are not inconsistent, that they are. I don't know necessarily that you would say that they're consistent, but they're not inconsistent. All right. So that's the third way. So again, changing the cognition or attitude, changing the behavior, adding information about to support the idea of consonance. And fourth, gathering or reducing the importance of the dissonance. Now, we'll stick with smoking. I've had a friend once in the past tell me, and not just one friend, I've had this told to me by multiple people, again, who smoke, or maybe they don't have the best diet, or they don't exercise, what have you. We're all going to die. Might as well enjoy what we're doing while we're alive. Well, again, you have these inconsistencies. If it's smoking, then you want to live, but you want to smoke, or you want to enjoy. You want to do an enjoyable activity, which kills you. So you just reduce the importance of it. Yeah, it's going to kill me, but I don't care. Eating giant cheeseburgers for every meal is probably going to shorten my life, but who cares? So again, this is a situation of reducing the importance of the dissonance. So there you go. So cognitive dissonance theory says that we all want to be consistent. Cognitive dissonance theory says that if you can't, that when you are inconsistent, you feel a negative arousal called cognitive dissonance. If you can't externally justify an inconsistent behavior, then you have to internally justify it. And when internally justifying a behavior, you do so typically in one of four ways: changing the cognition or attitude, changing the behavior, gathering information, suggesting that you are not dissonant, and reducing the importance of the dissonance. And that, my friends, is cognitive dissonance. All right. Like I said, if you have any questions, send them to me in emails. But that is it for cognitive dissonance.